Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Ellie Paskell and this is Cradle Your Body, Unleash Your Fire, the somatic journey for listening, rest and revolution. We already know how to create the world that we want to live in. Our bodies are guiding us with the language of sensation. And in this session, you're going to be supported to hear your body guidance and to channel it into the world. So I invite you to follow your impulses and your instincts in this space and open to meeting the true you, the one who lives with love, with mess, with flow, with vitality and with fire. Now, here to support you in taking the next step in your journey with your body, today we have Alexandra Pope and Shani Hugo Wurlitzer. Alexandra and Shani are the co-founders of the Red School and the co-authors of the iconic and hugely celebrated book from Hay House, Wild Power: Discover the Magic of the Menstrual Cycle and Awaken the Feminine Path to Power. They are pioneering the new emerging field of menstruality, creating a new lexicon and approach to women's health and well-being, creativity and leadership, and spiritual life based on the power of our menstruality consciousness. Between them, they bring over 45 years of experience. And today they teach worldwide on the psycho-spiritual process of maturation that unfolds from menarche to menopause and beyond. They're committed to training the menstruality leaders of the future. So Alexandra and Shani, I'm so thrilled that you're here. Your work has sent and continues to send waves of revolution around the world and certainly through my life. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you very much, Ellie. And I don't know about you, Shani, but I'm just loving the framing of this summit that you're running, the languaging of it. I just think of cradling yourself as the sort of source of the action, if you like. It's lovely languaging, and I feel myself stirred, I suppose I want to say, in the way that you introduce your whole series. It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Ellie. Likewise, there's something about what you've said that has just really reminded me of the kind of infinite intelligence and possibility that resides within our bodies, and that, you know, is incredibly exciting and also hope-giving. So thank you.
Yes.
Right, absolutely. So this is a space, this is a realm in which your body comes first. So before we go into all the logic, I'm going to support you to tune in for a few moments to this unworded portal into your power. So you may want to take a few breaths now with eyes closed. You may want to leave them open. I'm going to close my eyes, and I may do at points throughout the session. I'm always doing what I need to stay connected to my body. So just notice as you're here listening to us that you are in a body. And notice that that body is held by the furniture, the ground, and essentially the earth. And as you open to your felt sense experience and to honoring the wisdom that is within your body, I invite you to notice that she or he or they is breathing. And this point of the breath, this inhalation, And this exhalation is a point that you can come back to at any time to check in with your deep truth. To check in with your body's experience. Noticing the pace, the depth or the shallowness of this cycle, which is constantly happening in your precious vessel. This breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And I invite you, before we begin speaking again, to tune into the notion that your body's truth is of deep value. And to tune into the notion, perhaps more controversial, that your body's truth trumps anything else. And just see how that lands with you. Perhaps you want to stay with eyes closed if they've been closed, or perhaps you want to blink them open. And see what it's like to endeavor to stay here in the body as the words begin. And so it is. So, menstrual cycle awareness. This incredibly powerful practice. If there's anybody attending right now, Alexandra and Shani, who doesn't know what that means, can you give her an explanation at this point and tell us the awesomeness of it, what it brings?
Yes. Well, I feel like I want to start by saying there has been this huge chunk of our experience, for those of us who are in a body who has a menstrual cycle, there's been this huge chunk of our experience that has for a long time been unacknowledged, unnamed, unrecognized. And right now, as you draw our attention, Ellie, so beautifully to the value of connecting with our body, I just realized how sad I feel at that huge loss, as the cycle is such a profound invitation into a deeper presence with ourselves. Which is why Alexandra and I have been on a mission, firstly, to name this as a practice. So it was back in, was it 2016, Alexandra, when we were lying on the grass outside of Hawkwood?
Yes.
The process of writing the book Wild Power, and we said, this awareness of the cycle needs to be named as a practice. And we came up with the phrase menstrual cycle awareness to give it validity and to name it and claim it as our spiritual practice as a woman, as anyone who has a cycle, and as our way of engaging more deeply with who we are. So that's the first thing I want to say. And then we have really set about the process of unpacking what exactly this practice is, how to do it, what it means, how to work with it in the context of our everyday life. So with that little preamble in mind, Alexandra, do you want to maybe start by just saying overall what the practice is, and then I'll break down of the kind of steps to it.
Well, it is as it sounds.
Yeah.
The process of being aware of your menstrual cycle from day to day, because I think we all have probably noticed we're not the same every day. And actually, I want to include men in this as well, or people without menstrual cycles, because no one is the same all the time. And what's interesting is that for anyone with a menstrual cycle is that actually you're probably going to have a much more predictable life in terms of your energy and mood when you are aware of your menstrual cycle. So someone with a menstrual cycle can predict, in 3 weeks' time, when they're going to be menstruating, that actually they probably aren't wanting to go out partying or organize a children's party. Shani's a mum. She always has her eye on that one. Or, front up to a big meeting because you're just about to bleed. And so you can actually organize your life ahead of time to create a lot more ease and flow for yourself. So in essence, it is this capacity to pace and notice our energy and mood, and to learn the particular pattern of our whole cycle month, because of course it can change, because it's responsive to what's happening on the outside and what's happening on the inside, and sometimes there is more stress in our lives than at other time. But generally speaking, there is a predictability to the overall energy and flow of your mood and energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you learn to ride that, and it brings this whole new level of relationship, ease, pleasure, creativity. Over to you, Shani.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it's beautiful the way you framed that, and I noticed your response, Ellie, at some points to that, especially this idea of being able to sort of forecast what your needs might be. What an incredible power that is, and what an amazing self-care tool that is for us. And I just want to add in, the beauty of cycle awareness is there's both this physiological, biological process going on in our body, and it really serves us to pay attention to the physiological changes. There's something about that practice of fertility awareness that helps us to really engage with the physicality and the magic of our body. And then this layer that we're bringing in here is an awareness of how this physiological shift and change orchestrates our being, how it orchestrates our inner life and our psyche and our perspective. And this is the bit that's amazing, the capacities that we have at any given time.
Yes.
Orchestrated by the cycle. So, we have different powers and different strengths that we can draw on at different times. And it's almost like the cycle and awareness of the cycle gives us a much bigger range of experience of who we are, and allows us to really live into the full spectrum of our being, of our nature, instead of kind of, trying to stay the same, or trying to be one way, or trying to fit into a certain idea. So that's very precious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love, it's wonderful to listen to you guys. I know for myself, when I read Wild Power, I just thought, oh my goodness, this is what my body has been teaching me for 10 years, and someone's put it in a book, and I didn't know that this book existed, and it gave even more validity to what I'd been knowing I had to do.
Beautiful.
And I'm curious to know, I notice as I hear you, part of me is also a bit like in this somatic shape because my cycle is not predictable. I mean, my bleeds are predictable, but because I'm in a Kundalini awakening, that doesn't mean for me often that I can predict what will be happening in my body. But to me, the core essence of your work is still just as, if not even more potent, because what my body's taught me, which is to me sits at the such a precious nub of your work, is when my body says you have to slow down, or she says please be quiet, or don't go into the city today, or, you know, whatever it is, when I honor that as much as I'm able, when I allow those days when I have to be soft, and I simply accept the fact that today or in this moment I feel permeable, or I just, you know, what I learn is that it's as if the portal to my power, it gets to stay open, it gets to say stay soft. So that means that this incredible, often, you know, sometimes otherworldly power and knowings and capacity to sync with others or nature, whatever it is, can come through, which before, when I was battling my body and numbing her and making her stick to my very busy schedule, I never experienced any of that magic when I was trying to be linear. So this piece of this wild power, I wonder if you either would like to speak to that, like, what's your experience of that, or where did those words wild power come from?
Well, the word power has been with me from the beginning with this work. You know, if anyone were to ask me, you know, what's your work in the world about? I said, it's an exploration of power. And, you know, what I saw as power in the world was immensely destructive. But, you know, we all have some sort of power in some shape or form. And it's how we can experience that power in a wholesome way. So power is agency to go out and do things. But power as in feeling alive and connected to life. And I say so many things about power. So power, anyway, is this sort of, for me, it's perhaps another way of talking about it, is my creative expression in life. So I've been sort of circling this word power. I wanted to reclaim it, particularly as a woman, a cisgendered woman. You know, I'm sort of a second wave feminist, and you know, we were really about how to take up power, real power in the world. And so I was exploring it through the menstrual cycle. But yes, we came up with the phrase wild power because there's something that happens at menstruation that is so singular and so beautiful, which is that you if you're able to follow the rhythm of your menstrual cycle and slow down and basically do nothing when you bleed and just deeply rest, deeply drop. We call it the sort of inner temple. And if you can just deeply retreat, you open up this sort of inner portal where you can come into this profound alignment with yourself. And it's as though you plug into the center of the universe, but you have like a direct line to the cosmos, but also you have this profound connection to your deep self within the context of life with a capital L. And the extraordinary feeling of affirmation and recognition of who you are and what you're here to do, that your life feels meaningful, that you not only does it feel meaningful, you have a kind of vision or calling of what it is or where you want to channel, you know, your creative chi, your energy. It is this extraordinary alignment that brings you profoundly into the essence of who you are. And we call that wild power because wild is unadulterated, you know, wild is not socialized because we operate out of a socialized self all the time. So it's a way of talking about your true nature, your unsocialized self, your essence. It's a way of talking about that. But also your menstrual cycle then is in service to that. This is what we find so exciting, don't we, Shani? How you get this deep connection to yourself and you know your vision, if you like, your calling of what you're here to be in the world. But then each phase of the cycle is sort of in service of bringing that out into the world. At one level, it's about your developmental journey. So you go through a developmental process through each phase of the cycle, where you're learning to grow into your own nature. And as Shani said, learn to manage all these different powers or capacities you experience. And as you do that, you're learning also about how to bring this calling out into the world. And there are sort of stages of development with that. So it's like the stages of the development of your own soul or psyche or character, if you like. And then the stages of development of what it takes to fulfill yourself in the world. We talk about that as the creative process. Shani, do you want to embellish that?
Ellie, I would like to respond to your somatic response to the idea of the cycle as a way of being able to kind of predict and arrange your diary and life, and also in so doing answer your question about this wild power. So it's true, there is an archetypal pattern to the cycle, and as we know it, it does provide us this means of forecasting and foreseeing and being able to anticipate something. But if we got stuck in that place, we would have lost out on the real, true power of cycle awareness, which comes back to the thing that you're connected to, Ellie, which is this deep listening and responding to what is arising in the moment. And as Alexandra has described, there is this archetypal process underpinning your experience of the world through the menstrual cycle. But more than that, when you pay attention to your cycle, you are plugged into your wild power, which means you are in direct relationship with the evolutionary intelligence that is working you, with this wildness that is seeking to find form through the finite situation of your body and of the world. That's kind of what you're negotiating, this kind of structure with this chaos, this wildness, this pure essence of you. So this is really where the power of cycle awareness lies, is in this intimacy that you hold with your own experience, really pacing how you are and what you're negotiating. And it allows for this deep holding in that experience. So I do hope you feel that. I do hope you feel that you're held by something meaningful, even as the pattern may not be so predictable. Because that's, I think, really one of the real gifts of cycle awareness, is that sense of holding and meaning that's at work.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Those words are so spine fizzing. And this is such a piece of why I created this whole event, because when I would go into those very deep places with my body and spend a long time in there going, what's happening? What do you need? I would have this experience that you described of I'm now synced up with something so much bigger than me, and I do not need to be afraid, and I can let go and follow this flow. And this knowing that as I allow my life to be remade, to allow as much of this flow to come through as possible, what is being remade around me is a piece of the world that is completely aligned with Mother Earth. And this beautiful piece of the revolution is an inside job, which I've written a quote from your book here about that, because the revolution is an inside job. As you begin to practice menstrual cycle awareness, you fire up the revolution naturally. MCA awakens your female initiatory journey to power, and in following it, you also serve the world. And as I say that, I notice that I feel emotion, a lot of passion, because it's my belief that the complete bullshit notion that one has to be self-sacrificing and fitting into a schedule of a world that is too fast for many, and is creating too much of what we don't need and not enough of what we need, and that it's somehow serving the world to strain and push and contort to fit into it, when the exact opposite is true. Like, I'm not saying that it's easy. I don't have a baby yet, but this is where I always come back to. I'm not saying that it's easy to go, I have to follow my body, but I know what it is to have responsibility, and to find that balance. But it is responsible to listen to one's body. It is yeah.
Well, it's a bit like the planet. Our bodies are going to have the last laugh, the body wins, the planet wins. We don't ever get to win over those things. So either we can keep on trying to control the planet, we can keep on trying to control our bodies, we can keep on trying to control each other for that matter, but it's a fool's game. They will win. Our bodies will win. We get sick or whatever. And that's, if we think following a cycle, and we'll talk more about what that means, because Shani is a mother of 2 daughters and runs a full-on business, and has a partner. I've forgotten my line here, but it's non-negotiable now. We can't not pay attention to our bodies, because the fallout, the price of that is far higher than what it would demand for us to be able to follow our bodies. A little example is, I have a lot of very strong self-care practices to take care of my health. And people say to me, isn't that, time consuming or a bother or a faff? And I go, you know what? The bigger faff is being unwell. I don't mind this because I love feeling good. I find that so much more efficient, And Shani, I think maybe you should speak to this piece about what it means to, how do we follow a cycle in a world that does not acknowledge cycles? We still have our 9-to-5 jobs often, or we have children that we have to, look after and so on. And we can't just follow our, be in our own little private bubble all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ellie, I think you've really paved the way for this answer by reading that passage from the book, which just really struck me, those words, to hear them back. I felt very moved too. And I think that is really the kind of primary thing, is for us to recognize that not only are we serving ourselves, but we are serving the world when we care for our cyclical nature. So I think that's a huge paradigm shift, and that's the first thing to know. But the other thing that really supports me, and which is why we call it a practice, menstrual cycle awareness, is that it is a workout. It is an ongoing exercise in negotiating the world and my needs, and finding how to honor myself and also show up in the world. Mm-hmm. So I just feel like I want to say to myself and to everybody listening, it's an imperfect art. It is messy. It is hard. And it's probably always going to be that way. It's never like, you're never going to nail cycle awareness unless you go and, I don't know, hide away from everything and everyone. So, we're very real about the fact that it's a practice and it's a process. But there is something in that ongoing negotiation that roots us more and more firmly in ourselves and helps us to recognize what our boundaries are and where our non-negotiables are. And, you know, what I've found for myself is there are certain things where I need to give, as in compromise a little my ideal X, Y, or Z, because there are other needs and other demands that I value, that I want to show up for. You know, for example, my children in certain situations, but not always. And then there are other places where actually I have a firm boundary and a clear line. And whenever I overstep that line, I learn and I go, okay, I'm not doing that again. And so one of them is, and there are slight exceptions, but, you know, on day 1 or day 2 of bleeding, I will cancel absolutely everything I possibly can. You know, we've stepped out of events, interviews, very important things. We have stepped out of, because I've learned that that's a boundary that I'm not willing to compromise. So I think this is in a way how we do it. We kind of try and test things, and we find where there is a bit of give in our system and where we can negotiate, and then we find those places where we're not willing to, and it's not okay to. And in a way, that's one of the blessings of cycle awareness, is we really get to know our own boundaries. And then the other piece is, and this is at a much more subtle level, but in a way, this is really a great place to do the work, is more on the inside, you know, less about what you do or don't do, but more about how you relate yourself when you're having said experience. So to give you an example, something that sometimes happens to me just as I'm approaching bleeding, and a day or two before bleeding, I kind of lose my intellectual, articulate capacity. I sort of go cognitively offline. And it's very easy for me, if I'm having to do something where I'm needing to express myself or be articulate or convey something, it's very easy for me to be like, oh, I'm so rubbish today, what's wrong with me, or the state is not okay. And actually just having that internal of validating the condition I'm in and letting it be okay, and even more than that, trusting that the place and space I'm in has something to offer the situation that I'm showing up for. And I have learned that over and over again. It's like, when I let myself relax into that place, something deeper comes through. Yeah, my mind's offline, but I speak from another kind of intelligence. And that's the power that's there, that if I'm damning myself or giving myself a hard time, I never really allow myself to rest in that place in myself. So, you know, that's how we practice cycle awareness on the inside. And that, I think, is there's so much juice there. And it doesn't really involve us having to change the world or negotiate too much on the outside. It's much more of an inner work game, and lots of change that can happen there.
I mean, that's such a radical act, that of leaning back into your own experience and naming this as a powerful place in the moment for what's happening, instead of imposing something on yourself about how you're supposed to be. And I would just love to add something more about this. You know, Shani has this non-negotiable about stopping at menstruation. And in her last bleed, we had to cancel something quite important. And I wrote the letter and the email, and I said, Shani is menstruating, you know, and we didn't want to say, you know, someone was sick or anything like that, because it's not a sickness. She was menstruating, and it's sacred time. It's her moment to go to the temple, you know, to pray. And I mean, you can't always do that. I mean, you have to be very smart about where you share this kind of information, because, you know, not everyone has signed up to this yet. But this is where you are able to. This becomes a radical act for the world, you know, of saying, I choose to rest. And rest is actually so crucial to my well-being, but not just mine, you know, for actually, I want to say the state of the nation. You know, this is a practice that we all need. We're just lucky enough to have, well, I'm postmenopausal, and I have to do it more consciously. Shani has this monthly reminder of this inbuilt thing to experience of needing to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never convenient. Menstruation is never going to be convenient. So it's a radical disruptor. And I say, and that's its power over and over again. Yeah. It's going to be a radical disruptor. And that's what our world needs, is this radical disruption. I mean, it's about COVID every month.
I mean, I think that's the other piece that is so permission giving, is to actually acknowledge that when you're bleeding and you take time out for yourself, it is going to disturb, annoy, and disrupt those around you. It is going to be inconvenient for other people. It pisses my husband off every month because he has to
me off 1 month, Shani. Me 1 month.
Oh no, you mean I've got it? Disrupts everything for everybody else. So if we know that, we can go, you know what? That's actually one of the blessings of menstruation. It ruffles the feathers and causes this necessary disturbance to allow for more aeration in the system, allow for more flexibility, adaptability. Disruption is really a power to behold. And in our kind of controlling world, disruption is such a gift. So, dear women, dear those who menstruate, hear us when we say it's not going to be convenient. Also for you, it interrupts you. You're on a mission, you're busy doing stuff, and then you've got to stop. It's like, oh, you've got to finish. So just know that, and that's the nature of bleeding.
And there's this whole cosmos that will open for you.
Yeah.
Irreplaceable. It is priceless. It is the alpha and omega of everything. When you touch into that once, you'll never not want to, you'll want to get it every month. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I would love to take a breath now all together and invite everybody, just tune in to your body, see what is alive. There's been a lot of words, a lot of real powerful topics being talked about. So take a breath and just allow this question of how do you know? How do you know what your body needs? And with that segue now, Shani, I'm going to invite you to flow into the cycle check-in practice, if that's okay.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for that little pause, Ellie. I'd like to just guide you now in an experience of how you can do what we call a cycle check-in, which is a way of sort of mindfully docking into where you are in the cycle, and to really kind of notice that and respond to that on the inside. So this is the practice we recommend every day. And here's a version of it. So you can do this with your eyes open or closed. Whatever it is that helps you to attune to yourself. So why not take one deep breath and a nice long sigh as a way to settle. And let's just begin with casting our minds back over the day thus far. Just noticing the condition you woke up in this morning. Just thinking about what your energy levels have been like so far today and what your mood has been, what the dominant tone of your mood has been. And also reflecting on what your mind has been up to in the course of the day thus far. And then bringing your attention into the here and now, to just feel into the sort of layer beneath the layer. So feeling right into what we like to call your inner atmospherics. Staying mindful of your breath, but dropping a little bit deeper to feel what the atmosphere is like inside you right now. It's like you're doing your own little internal weather reading. And noticing your body, the sensations, how your energy is moving or not moving, whether it's blocked or free-flowing, vibrant or dull, or anything in between. Just sensing that energetic level. And then attuning to your heart and the landscape of your feelings right now. How is your heart? How are you feeling? As you come into presence with yourself, what is here? And tracking your mind is noticing how your mind is operating today. Smooth, jagged, sharp, fast, slow, or whatever. Just seeing and sensing your mind. And then just coming back to the whole of your being and just taking it all in. And allow the condition that you're in to start to give rise to a shape in your body. So let your state inform your body to move into a physical shape. It might be just one part of your body that moves into the shape, or your whole body. So just allow your inner experience to take form through your body. It's almost like you are letting the dominant tone of this day fill your body, take shape. And if you will, just breathe a little bit deeper and really let yourself relax into the shape that you're in. So let yourself inhabit this place. Give it a little more dignity, respect, reverence. And whatever is going on in your day, whatever the world is expecting of you, demanding of you, whatever is required of you today, right now in this moment, just enjoy this incredibly radical act of really, truly occupying your condition. And just notice how you're able to root in. And I'm curious if you know what day of your cycle you're on today. So day 1 is the first day of bleeding. And if you've already been tracking your cycle, you might know what day you're on. So just clocking that. And if you haven't been tracking your cycle, this is something you may want to look up or check out when we're done. But either way, right now, just acknowledging this is the place I'm in. This is the day I'm on. And take one final deep breath. And just letting yourself soften and melt back into a comfortable resting position. Slowly returning your attention here to be with us when you're ready. And I wonder, Ellie, if you would be willing to maybe share what day of your cycle you're on, and just a couple of words that capture the essence of what you tapped into, the place you're in.
Yeah. So I'm on day 18.
Mm-hmm.
And tuning in, I notice a lot of orange power around my belly, which is asking me to relinquish to it.
Beautiful. So if I was instructing you in the practice of cycle awareness now, Ellie, I would suggest that you write that down in a journal or somewhere, so you have a record of what day you are on your cycle and something of the kind of mood, essence, energy, tone of that day. Because it's in that practice of noting it every day that it's almost like, I want to say, Alexandra, piecing together the pieces of a puzzle. It's like there's some coherence forming in your being, and when you consciously clock it, it allows you to more and more deeply embody what was maybe unknown or unconscious before. It's like you bring something in. So that writing it down and tracking it and looking back on it over time helps you to almost join the dots, and it's a very important part of the integration, and also understanding your relationship with your cycle and the patterns and how they're playing out through your being and your life experience. So yeah, it's a really important piece of the practice.
I think I would like I believe the free gift is our Menstrual Cycle Awareness ebook.
Yeah.
So it's well worth downloading that, because you've got just a description of the sort of nuts and bolts of what we mean by cycle awareness. And there's a chart in there that you can then print off, keep printing off a chart for 1 month. And it's basic, very basic, but actually it's the simplest and easiest setup. I mean, you can do it on apps and things, but the beauty of having a physical chart is you can see your cycle at a glance, the whole process, and then you compare with previous months, because that's the really fun part where the same things happen almost to the day sometimes. Really hilarious. Really.
Yeah, and the things you thought were sort of random, you realize are cyclical, you know? Yeah, amazing.
So funny. And just for those that don't have a menstrual cycle now, I'm post-menopause, and sometimes it's meaningful for me and sometimes it's less meaningful for me, but I work with the moon cycle. So it's quite interesting. It's day 5 of the moon cycle. And I've been, my energy has been at its lowest ebb. And the phrase that came to me was, I'm back, day 5.
Day 5, yeah.
Back in saddle. I could feel that inner discipline back, and that motivation and focus. And it's quite contained, but I can feel there's a drive there. It's, wanting to go somewhere. It's interesting. I was going to say it's quite subtle, but actually it's not so subtle today. The moon cycle in general is much, much more subtle than the menstrual cycle. Yeah, and actually, if you're not drawn to it as a postmenopause woman, ignore it. Do not let anyone tell you what you should be doing now.
Yeah, gosh, it's such a delight to hear you talk about, what you're experiencing in the day. And yeah, it's nice to hear you talk about the cycle chart. I said what I said before, and it's true, and at the same time it isn't. I'm remembering in the past few months I've been more vigilant with my cycle tracking, and it is magical when I go, that's the same day, and that, what? It is magic. So before we round up, is there anything, what's one final thing you could leave our attendees with to support them to channel their wild power into the world from tracking their cycle? Just a little tidbit.
Shani.
I feel I want to speak to those of you for whom this is a completely new idea, and perhaps you're sort of sitting on the fence about whether or not you're going to bother to pay attention. And I want to give you a little prod of encouragement to say, just do it for 3 months. Okay, or even just 1 month. Just do it for 1 month. Just to notice what a difference it makes, because it is our experience that this practice of cycle awareness is profound in terms of the well-being that it creates, the inner kindness that it generates, and how it supports us to really live our calling in the world and serve what we're here to serve. And that might sound really far-fetched to you, but I want you to just take a chance on the experiment and just have a go and just see what happens. And in particular, if you could carve out a little bit of time for yourself to rest at menstruation, just to notice what difference that makes. I really want to encourage you to do it. So don't make this too much of an ordeal. Keep it really simple for yourself. Just give it a go and see what happens. And then write to us and tell us, okay?
Yes. And actually on the back of that, I actually want to acknowledge those of you who probably may suffer with your menstrual cycle. You may have hideous pain every month, or you may have a very irregular cycle. You might only bleed 3 or 4 times a year because you have PCOS, or that you have extreme mood changes premenstrually, like PMS or PMDD. And the first thing I would say is, if you're very irregular, just chart the cycle you have. Just start to think about becoming more rhythmic with your life in general. But charting the cycle is a medicine that has an effect on your experience of the cycle. Because it actually, the mindfulness and the choice to be present to what's happening and actually giving credence to it and slowing down, if you're, for instance, instead of forcing yourself to push ahead when you want to go more slowly, reduces stress in the system. And stress is behind all kinds of illness. It's just absolutely at the root. And because we don't have time now, but I would actually really strongly recommend reading Wild Power, because we have so many good stories in there, and there's so much wisdom, and there's so much guidance for if you're suffering. So don't just dismiss this work because you have a shitty cycle. This work came out of me having the most hideous experience of my menstrual cycle. It was the reason this work kicked off, and I got the most unbelievable period pain in my early 30s, and it used to last for 3 or 4 days, and I'd just want to rip my uterus out. It was so insane, the pain. So that's the origins of this work, folks. So if you're suffering, head to the book, drink in the medicine that's in the book. The book is medicinal, but above all, it's your cycle that's going to deliver something to you with patience and time and kindness. And kindness naturally grows when you do cycle awareness. It just is an inherent byproduct of cycle awareness.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I invite you to read the book, folks. It will rock your world. And the link to access Shani and Alexandra's free gift is beneath this video. So click, 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 click. And before we finally close, let's all take a breath together. So you may want to let your eyes close or keep them open. Just tune in again to this vessel that you're in, just for a breath or two. Notice what is alive for you. And I invite you to take a breath of honoring for yourself and your body for taking this next step in your somatic journey. And thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, you pioneering Red School women, Alexandra and Shani. It's been a total delight.
Thank you, Ellie. I've really, really enjoyed it too. It's been so pleasurable talking with you. Thank you.
Wonderful, lovely, just very gorgeous unfolding this.
Yes, all right, everyone, go gently with fire.